There we go. Let's see how this goes. I have about, I don't know, an hour and a half to talk to people. I didn't release anything today, so we're going to see what happens when I just start a live stream randomly without telling anybody that I'm going to even do a live stream. I'm just going to do it randomly when I have like an hour and a half and see how that goes. And that's this. So hello, anybody that's watching, including people who might be watching after. And if you're tuning in right now, thank you for being here, because I don't know how you even found this. I mean, maybe you just like clicked on it when it popped up. I don't know, you got maybe notifications or something, but here I am. Hi, Chickpea Dreams. Hi, Robert Cook. Good to see y'all in here. I got 5 concurrent viewers. This is how you know that I've truly gone big time. Thanks for being here. I don't even know what this is supposed to be all about. I guess, the truth is that we're really close to 19,000, but we're not quite to 19K, so I don't want to claim it too early. However, I don't know. It seems like a pretty good reason, right? But it's good to see y'all. I'm glad people are joining. Almost didn't expect anybody to join because it was just so abrupt. It just kind of came out of nowhere. But here I am. Chickpea asks, have you heard of Andrewism on YouTube? Yes, Andrewism is wonderful. I actually pitched his channel to people when he was a super, super small channel. I don't know if the videos are even up anymore, but when I pitched Andrewism's channel, he only had like poetry on there, and it was really awesome. The poetry's awesome, but that's all his videos were at that stage. And I pitched him super early on. And I think I got him some of his earliest subscribers in that process. So yeah, no, definitely. Andrewism is great. Oh no, have I frozen? Oh, it looks like I've frozen here. Oh man, how do I even fix that? All right. Hopefully that works. Oh, no, I'm still frozen. Well, that's a sad story right there. I don't know what to do about that. Sometimes I have to restart my entire computer to fix this. So I don't even know how I'm going to possibly fix this. Hi. Hey, everybody. I assume you can still hear me talking, but you can't see me anymore. I don't know what to do about this. What if I go start recording? No? Anything? This? Click that. Oh, real boomer moments right now. I might have to turn off the live stream and turn it back on. The true classic. Oh, did that work? I mean, did I? Oh, there we go. I think I've got it back now. Cool. Sam says it's like a podcast with just a still thumbnail. Thumbnail. Yeah. No, I think I got it working now. Okay. Crisis averted. There it is. Oh yeah, that third place video that Andrewism did, loved it. Really good, super interesting. I learned something myself in that one. I didn't really kind of know about the more academic analysis of third places and all of that. So that was educational for me, especially as someone who's been worried about the fact that we just don't really have third places in the modern era, or if we do, they are really not conducive to what they're supposed to do. It occurred to me that the bar is supposed to be our modern third place, but it's just so loud most of the time, such loud music in one way or another that it's hard to even have conversations, and therefore it's hard for it to qualify as a third place. I think it can, venues and bars of different kinds can qualify as third places, but it's also kind of sad that we're just like stuck with bars as our third places. It used to be historically, and Andrewism talks about this in the video, but it's always been something that interested me, is that historically, cafes and bars were places you were supposed to have like long, deep philosophical conversations with strangers. Y'all were supposed to get together and have these very deep discussions. But in the modern day, of course, we all know that's not what it is anymore, right? In the modern day, the bar is for these sort of shallow discussions where you're shouting over music and almost nobody can hear you. And if you want to talk about some like deep philosophical stuff, people will probably just think you're weird. But, even Karl Marx, it used to be, Karl Marx and other people that he knew would go out to the bars just to discuss philosophy and just to get into big political arguments with people. And this was just considered normal. That's just something that used to be normal. This was also normal during the American Revolution. It was normal in Great Britain during the time when like Thomas Paine was writing. There were just all of these places where it was normal and acceptable that you would go to have big, public, deep, intellectual conversations about philosophy and politics and stuff like that. And those places are kind of just gone. Or rather, the real life versions of those places are gone. I suppose we have kind of internet versions of those. Oh, great. I'm frozen again. I don't know what keeps going wrong here. Okay, let's try what worked last time. Boom. Okay. Let's try it again. Is it working? Okay. Turned off. Okay. There we go. That works. That works. Boom. Here I am. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to do that during our stream here, but something's wrong. I think one of the wires is loose on my camera. It seems like what's going on. Your frozen face looked like you were disappointed with something. Yeah, I guess I was. I wish bars were like that now. Yeah, for real. Like it would be great. I'm that person in the bar that you meet, and I'm like, have you ever thought about how the universe is fundamentally meaningless, but meaning is a subjective phenomenon, therefore humans manufacture their own meaning, and that's good enough. We can build an entire life on a subjective meaning. And people are like, yeah, and bars are exclusive for sober people, so people that don't want to be surrounded by alcohol, that's not good. Loud noises make them also exclusionary for neurodivergent people, honestly, myself included. As somebody with ADHD, I hate having to shout over loud noises. Like, it overloads my brain. Like, it is very hard to focus and to think straight when there's loud, booming music, or just loud anything, even if the TV's on too loud. Ilyuni asks, what do you think about the Cop City RICO case in Atlanta? I mean, it's a demonstration that what they're doing is working and that it scares the state. And the statement that the prosecutors have released demonstrates that anarchism is a known threat to the state and that they see anarchism as their primary threat. And that they see anarchism as being the movement that was most active starting from the George Floyd protests. I find it very interesting that they think that all of this stuff happening with, Stop Cop City in Atlanta, it got the criminal conspiracy got its start in the George Floyd protests. And it's like, there's some truth to the fact that a lot of these coalitions came together from the George Floyd protests, but their idea that there's some shadowy criminal conspiracy behind all of this, and it began with George Floyd protests, is completely erroneous, and it shows the sort of naive misunderstanding that they have of how movements actually work. But Also, there's probably some cynical aspect of it that they don't really care about where it started. They're just trying to create this big umbrella of people that they are allowed to stigmatize and jail and put in prison. And the way I look at it is this case is not necessarily meant to... Oh, did I freeze again? I did. I froze again. Wow, that was a really weird place for me to freeze. Okay, boom, it's back. Yeah, see, they are trying to stop it. What that person said was correct. They're trying to stop my stream because I'm telling you all the truth. Now I'm going to go like Alex Jones over here. But like, that is essentially what's going on in my mind. Oh yeah, they don't really care about the truth of it. What they're hoping to do is establish court precedent. So if they can get any of these RICO charges through, if they even get some small constellation of the charges they're looking for through, then it will establish precedent they can later weaponize in court to do more RICO cases involving more people that are not in formal organizations together, where there is no criminal conspiracy, but they will be able to claim that they are part of a criminal conspiracy just because they hold anarchist viewpoints. Also, a few people have pointed out how it's sort of silly. The things they point out as being the planks of anarchism, they're right. Things like, solidarity, community defense, anti-authoritarianism, and so on. But like, those are not just like exclusively things being done by anarchists. So, it's a mixture of like ignorance and weaponized incompetence, I think, that's taking place with that RICO case. And we'll see how it goes. Yeah, Scientific Glass Guy says some coffee shops in some cities are still decent third places. Olympia, for example. Yeah. I just got done debating a transgender fascist who claimed fascism is anti-capitalist. Yep, that sounds about right. Is this thing keeps glitching. It's driving me nuts. It turned off again. I don't know how to prevent this, but I got to figure something out. This is no good. I mean, I can get it back on really fast now, but I hate that it keeps doing that. Yeah, no, I disagree that fascism is anti-capitalist. I think that it claims to be anti-capitalist, but it does that because it's trying to capture anti-capitalist sentiments. It's not anti-capitalist, it's pro-capitalist, but it wants the capitalists to be under the control of the central state government. So, what happens under fascism is they create these big overarching bureaus that control entire trades and sectors of the economy. And those are used in order to keep the corporations under control of the central fascist government. Now, it should be said that there's obviously fascism has evolved insofar as we saw with like Pinochet, where they actually did an almost complete deregulatory regime. And I think that demonstrates that fascism is actually a mode of like siege defense for capitalism. And so what's happening, like you look at Chile, where we actually got the beginning of neoliberalism. A lot of people don't know. Neoliberalism did not begin in the United States. Neoliberalism began in Pinochet's Chile, where he essentially deregulated the entire economy at the behest of a group called the Chicago Boys. And so we have actually seen fascism move towards this sort of heavily deregulatory perspective. And that's because fascism is not anti-capitalist. Fascism is a way for capitalism to live through revolutionary pressures and revolutionary threats. And so, yeah. Let's see here. Recently watched a video about paleontological colonialism, where the imperial core goes to the periphery and takes fossils back with them. That's interesting. Don't think I've heard of that. Bars are clubs now. A lot of them, yes. Yeah. The first couple of pages of the RICO case where they tried to describe anarchism, collectivism, solidarity, and mutual aid were a really fun read. Yeah, it's kind of funny how they were like a mixture of right and wrong. Like some of the things they were saying were kind of correct, and some of the things they were saying were like way off base, Also, if any of you are here watching, I would just like to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Like the video if you like it right now. I think that helps promote it into people's feeds while I'm live. So liking it while it's live, I think does help. And lastly, if you appreciate the work that I'm doing here on the channel, go become a patron at patreon.com/Anark, ANARK. Any amount is appreciated. That's the obligatory pitch. Moving on. So, let's see here. Yeah, basically somebody was referring to the argument with the fascist. Did you all know Hitler was a socialist? I'm sure he wouldn't lie. Being an insane fascist and all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Me Too says, somehow Italian Wikipedia describes neo-fascist groups as anti-capitalist as well, which doesn't help. Yeah, I think that's because that's what they claim. They claim they're anti-fascist, right? And that's the thing, fascism is an ideology based in deception. So it is happy to deceive anyone and everyone in order to concentrate hierarchical power. If you consume my work, especially if you consume like a modern anarchism, parts 1 through 3, you'll see I kind of argue for this fact that hierarchical power is fundamentally based in deception, coercion, and threat of violence. And that deception part often goes unspoken about, where hierarchical power is actually very oriented around lies and false propaganda and misinformation and stuff like that. And you see that when you have an incredible concentration of hierarchical power, deception goes wild to the degree where you literally have them saying they are their opponents. Is my stream glitching out? Like when I look at the preview here, it looks like I'm getting weird glitchy things at the bottom. Am I having like a glitch core stream? Can anybody confirm that? Okay, so I'm having weird glitchy things. I have no idea what's going on. That's so weird. I have no idea I think once again, something's like loosely plugged in or something, but I can't fix it right now while I'm on stream. So unfortunately, I think we're going to be stuck with a glitch core stream here. Maybe that's cool though. Maybe, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I've decided that's cool. It's the FBI. They're on to you, brother. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm cool. Let's see. Maybe if I just close all the other tabs. There we go. Let's see if that works. I'm kind of doubtful that's going to work, but we'll see. We'll see. No, it didn't. It didn't work. I just that was a complete waste. Yeah, that did not work. It's unfortunate right there. No glitch here. Okay, I'm glad to hear that it's not everywhere. Yeah, Gabriella says, hierarchies require internal self-justification as a core epistemic commitment. Yes. And they don't really care how that self-justification takes place. I mean, you can see this like in the Nazis. You had them with belt buckles that said Gott mit uns, which means God with us. And ostensibly that was the Christian God as per most of their propaganda. But if you looked at the like internal like Nazi propaganda about what sort of like religious commitments they were supposed to have, they were like weird esoteric mixtures of like a Norse paganism and all kinds of like weird mixtures of like esoteric mysticism from history. It all really just comes down to they don't really care how that self-justification is established and developed. They just want regimentation at any cost. So they're not anti-capitalist. They're not socialist. They just know that those are useful in deceiving people who maybe had more anti-capitalist or socialist leanings, but also had a bunch of like reactionary conceptualizations that are easy to weaponize for fascists. William Ham asks, quick question. I'm interested in getting into critical theory. Where should I start? I don't really know. Critical theory has not been like a place of like great emphasis for me personally. However, my understanding is critical theory kind of derives from the Marxist tradition. If I were to start reading, I think, and this is an expression of ignorance right now, so feel free to just like tell me I'm wrong, but I think I would probably start reading like Frankfurt School. I'd read like Adorno and stuff like that. Probably be a good place to start on that. But yeah, so the answer to your question is I don't know, but there's my bullshit answer. Connor Barber asks, I was looking at your writing on Anarchist Library. Is your last name actually Baryon? Makes you sound like a comic book scientist. It's rad. I'll let you decide the answer to that. But yes, that's me. I'm a comic book scientist. I'm a comic book anarchist scientist. Silfrina asks, I feel like fascism is anti-free market capitalism, if that makes sense, but not anti-capitalist itself. Yeah, well, I mean, I had to offer that clarification about Pinochet, right? I mean, like, they certainly were not anti-free market. That was the beginning of extreme anti-market or free market deregulatory regimes. So it's not as easy as saying that it's, about an extremely constrained market or an extremely unconstrained market. It just appears that it's really the siege response of capitalism under threat. And that's an old take. That's not a Daniel take. That's just a classic take. Mostly Marxists tend to say that, but I think I agree with him for the most part. Oh, I frozen? I froze. Of course. Deactivate. Oh, there we go. Activate. Okay, fixed. See, I got this down now. This is like a science, fixing my own technological mistakes. Oh, okay. We got it. We're back. Yeah, Tempest says, I've made the same argument. Hierarchies cannot exist without violence, fear of punishment, and lies. Yeah, that's literally one of the precepts that I'm arguing for in my work. That is a cluster of things, violence, threat of violence, and deception, I call domination. When those things all work together, that's what I call domination, especially when they work to create obedience. Let's see here. Hey, Baryon here. I don't think that one's going to stick. Interesting piece of trivia, however, the original intended name for this channel, I think we can all agree that I chose a better name, was Baryon Pipeline. Bad name. It was an attempt, but I think Anark, far better name, gotta say. In space, regular viewer, but you don't usually comment. Well, I appreciate you commenting. Commenting really helps the channel in a variety of different ways, helps push it in the metrics. And yeah, I also just like interacting with my audience. I like seeing people's responses, thoughts, comments in pretty much any way, even when people are critical. I usually enjoy those comments, or at least find them entertaining if I disagree. Next thing, Scientific Glass Guy says, do you think any of the following movements are still relevant? Food Not Bombs, IWW, Catholic Workers Movement. What are your thoughts on Black Hammer? Weird that that's being mentioned in the same list. Food Not Bombs still does pretty good work in a lot of places. I think that it's kind of a shallow end for people to enter radical organizing. It can often be a good way to get started. I don't think that what Food Not Bombs is doing can really scale up to any sort of revolutionary activity, but it is a really good way for people to sort of got like socially introduced to anarchist principles. It's sort of a direct action in miniature. It does help people. It's mostly, I would say, harm reduction. That's kind of what it boils down to. It's mostly harm reduction. It's helping people who are starving, getting them the amenities that are needed to live, and that's valuable. I don't have any criticisms of that, other than that harm reduction is not in and of itself revolutionary, but revolutions require harm reduction. So I guess you'd say it's necessary, but not sufficient. The next one was IWW. I don't want to talk any shit about IWW, but there are very few branches that are actually doing like big successful union pushes. I think the IWW mostly exists as a social club these days, and it is good for educating people about how to do union organizing. Their educational materials are phenomenal, and anybody who does union organizing will tell you the same. They give you a very good understanding of how to do radical union organization. So if you wanted to join IWW as a way to educate yourself about organizing unions, I would say that's a great idea. But once again, no offense to IWW, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here. The actual making of the unions, they don't seem to be super successful at. But that could change. So they could indeed be relevant in the future. At the moment, I think they're growing in relevance, but they're not quite to the place they need to be to get a lot done. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm just shitting on all of these. I think that these all have value, right? The Catholic worker movement, not going to pretend I know enough about that to make any comment. And my thoughts on Black Hammer. Black Hammer's a cult. I mean, that has basically been confirmed at this point. We have gotten statements from people that were inside the cult that have told us in detail what took place, telling us exact events, telling us people that were involved, implicating Ghazi himself as being the cult leader and doing extremely coercive things to the people that are in the org. Things like, interrupting them when they were doing other things, calling them to meetings in the middle of other events, knowing they were doing other events as like loyalty tests, spreading lies and getting everybody to inform on one another. There are even allegations about rape and sexual abuse of various kinds. There was extreme ideological brainwashing. It's really bad. So if you've not read about the tell-all that a bunch of ex-members did about Black Hammer, you really should. And it does not belong in that list. Let's see. What do you think about conflation of capitalism with technology? I mean, as you say, it's a conflation, Capitalism just so happened to be the system that existed when we underwent extreme technological development, and that's mostly because of previous technological development. But I do not take it as a bygone conclusion that it had to have been capitalism to do that. I think that really the main characteristic that is required for us to have technological development is the empowerment and coordination of scientists. So what capitalism did better in conjunction with the state was fund scientists. And insofar as that you don't fund scientists, you'll see technology begin to wane. Capitalism is not enough to make technology improve. You need people doing active research and development, which requires funding that research and development, which capitalism actually kind of sucks at, but capitalism plus the state is pretty decent at. However, I think you could have gotten this technological development out of other economic systems. It just would have been done differently. Well, Lily thinks Anark is a great name, so boom. What do I think about Rojava? I think Rojava is a very promising project. I think that there is a lot to look for and admire about what's taking place there. I also think that we can see that it is... Oh, I saw a blink. Oh, I'm frozen again. Frozen again. Fixing it fast. Boom. There it is. That's how it is. You see how fast that was this time? So fast. Anyway, but Rojava is a very promising project. However, they're under a lot of pressure and they're kind of being forced to cooperate with a lot of hierarchical power structures. And I think that puts them at a lot of risk. I hope that they are able to survive this integration or cooperation with hierarchical power structures. But I'm afraid that if they make a few missteps, they could very well empower their military over the rest of their populace, and they could create too much centralization, which would just lead them back to state capitalism rather than where they are now, which is at least has the potential to move towards a socialistic economy. So, but I do think that it is inspiring in their ability to empower women as a Kurdish national liberation movement, a demonstration of how you can create autonomous territory during times of political and economic strife, and therefore create power structures which are able to benefit the people. Like I said, just have some fears that I hope do not come true. Baryon sounds like a character from The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. There we go. That's totally what I was doing. Baryon Pipeline sounds like the name for an oil pipeline. Okay, so I made the right decision, I think. Tempest Lord Raihan says, your channel logo reminds me of Raven's Night by Wisdom. The Raven is also a good mascot of Anarchy. They mourn and avenge their dead. They can work together to take down eagles, etc. Yeah. No, I think that the Raven is a really good anarchist mascot. They are both individualistic and they have a social instinct. So that is to say, they can spend a lot of time on their own, but they also tend to flock together. If you see like a raven or a crow or corvids in general in like a parking lot, you're going to tend to see others. And at the end of the night, all of them meet up in some communal nest that they all hold. So they go out, they do things on their own, and they work together when it's needed to find resources and tell each other where other resources is. That's also a very interesting aspect. But they have this mixture of the collective and the individual. And I think that's really cool. They're also really, really, really smart, like smarter than a lot of mammals. And I've just always really liked corvids. Like anybody who knows me knows that I really like corvids. Let's see here. John Doe asks, are there any old videos of yours that you don't really agree with anymore? In other words, have your opinions changed much since the start of this channel? Yeah, the one that I disagree with most now has just been unlisted, which was one where I just laid out a bunch of jargon, the answer to a bunch of jargon. I kind of like did one recently, like an Anark Abridged, where I just laid out a bunch of jargon, but it was like a short video essay where I attempted to do that. However, I don't really agree with a lot of the definitions that I gave there anymore. So I just unlisted the video, even though some of it was really useful. I think it didn't age super well. At the beginning of Human Nature, I kind of make some statements about the state of nature, or I think, yeah, I spoke clearly. At the beginning of the essay, Human Nature, I make some kind of statements I wouldn't probably say now about what the state of nature was like. After the revolution, I did an entire Anark Responds where I responded to comments and clarified thoughts on that. But other than that, I think I pretty well agree with everything that I've said. If you're interested in my thoughts on After the Revolution, you can go watch the Anark Responds, where I respond to a bunch of comments on After the Revolution. Flops says, hey, Anark, I think it would be interesting if you had a discussion with the political science YouTuber President Sunday. He has some great video essays that reason about and dissect the Weberian state. I'll try to go watch some videos. I don't usually reach out to other people to do things, so I usually wait for them to reach out to me. But, maybe so. It's possible. Feral Thoughts says, would you agree that anarchy could only come to fruition through individuals agreeing with it? No. Excuse me. If this is the case, how do we go about convincing billions? I mean, the answer is no. You are never going to get everybody to agree with it. What you need is a large enough number of people to agree with it to overthrow the previous way of things, to create to prefigure a replacement power structure, and then to go to conflict with the existing structure to either destroy it or to secede from it. And if you're interested in my specific ideas about how to do that, watch Constructing the Revolution. And then if you want a huge amount of detail and like a revolutionary flow chart all the way to anarchy, you should go watch my the third part of A Modern Anarchism. So no, I do not believe that you're ever going to get there through some like voluntary convincing of everybody. You probably won't even get the majority of people, unfortunately. However, you probably will need to convince, I'm going to say, somewhere around 10 to 30% in order to really create something that matters. I've been told before, I think that you only need 2 to 5% to carry out a violent coup. However, if all we do is carry out a violent coup, we're just going to fall victim to all the same things that everybody's the revolutions of the past have fallen victim to. It's not enough to just smash the state machinery. You also need to create a replacement for it. But how do we go about convincing large numbers of people? Propaganda and demonstration by action. We need to create the replacement power structures and demonstrate that they can work. They also then serve as revolutionary schools for the people that occupy those power structures, because then they learn how to live in an anarchistic society or using horizontal power structures. So, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you can hear the Windows sound. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm getting fed the sounds like notifications while I'm doing this. I'm gonna turn down my volume. Hopefully, that makes it where y'all can't just hear that over and over and over. Okay. Meng Savar says, I think that if all resources are equally available, anybody who possibly wouldn't have the resources to come up with something incredible now would probably lead to greater scientific development. Personally, I think of society where everybody's provided their basic needs, and then they are able to, research what is interesting to them, go about creating and learning and developing and doing all of that, the things that interest them. Then we would actually create a society where people did more valuable labor. And I know that sounds really like counterintuitive to the masses of people who live in this society, but that's because we live in hierarchical power structures where we have to be dominated for anything to get done. But if we had a society which provided us our basic needs and enabled us to do the things which empower us, I think that we would be far better off. We would get a lot more done, actually. Let's see here, David Sipos. On the topic of tech and science, any book recommendations exploring how scientists and people like programmers can advance anarchism? Feels hard to convince people earning 70 to 100K a year. I don't know of any books. That's a short answer to your question. I think it's probably something that we should be focusing on. I think that people who are programmers actually have a huge amount of valuable knowledge that could be applied to the struggle. We will need all kinds of digital platforms to get this done, not only in a transition, but in a future society. So I think that it's necessary. I don't think anybody's written sufficiently on that. I've thought about it a lot, though. But I'm going to not try to go off on too long a tangent on that one. I would say probably a good place to start, just in it might interest people, is reading about Stafford Beer and cybernetics. Go read about that. Pretty cool stuff. What are some good anarchist YouTubers that you watch and like? I watch Thought Slime. I watch Andrewism. I watch a few different ones. It's always hard to get off the top of my head. Oh, The Canvas. I love The Canvas. He does really great stuff. He also has another channel called Germinal, but he's an open anarchist, so you can find him talking about that pretty regularly. You got Down the Rabbit Hole by Ketsa. I highly recommend it. That channel's still super small. Go search for Down the Rabbit Hole, and it will be with Ketsa or by Ketsa. Let me see if I can find it right now. Down the Rabbit Hole, Ketsa. Down the Rabbit Hole with Ketsa. Boom. She's only got 2 videos, but they are already really good. Off to a great start. I put it there in chat for anybody that's interested. Go give that one a watch too. There's so many, it's hard to, you got Homebrew Futures. That's another small channel that makes really good videos. It's so hard to just like plug everything that is valuable here. So sorry if I left anybody out that's really good. You've got Alki Historiker, which is spelled ALKI Historiker, you know, like the German word for historian. They've got some great ones. God, yeah, too many. It's just, those are some that come to mind. Any thoughts on mitigating the effects where people who do more in an org often end up with more influence or power? I handle the money for my group and people rather defer to me than be, dang. I wish I had the answer to that. That's a real problem in a lot of different organizations. I call it like it's sort of like a hierarchy that arises from duocracy. Okay. And the only way I've ever found of mitigating it, and this is still not like something I think we've like found some super successful way of mitigating, is that you have to like consciously rotate people doing the roles. And that means you need to, if you have a bunch of knowledge and you do a lot of things, you need to try to educate somebody who can be your replacement or who can help you do it so that more people are involved in doing that central role. As far as treasurer, good luck. I'm so sorry. But treasurer is one of those positions that it's super hard to get people to do, has super high rates of burnout. So I hope that you're able to continue forward. And I would recommend that you start asking people to help you with the task, because you could also express to them that you're afraid that you're kind of creating an informal hierarchy by having so much access and knowledge and that not being distributed to the rest of them. Let's see here. Mel says, I think you missed my question earlier, but do you think of squatting and other praxis, but what do you think of squatting and other practices of that kind? I think that squatting is like a valid tactic, but I don't think that it is, like strategically viable in a revolutionary sense, you know? Give me just a sec. I have to check something. Okay, weird stuff. Just reading a message that I just got. So squatting. It's valuable to help homeless people find a place to stay. It's probably valuable in pressuring some sort of development certain kinds of development from not taking place. For example, if you have gentrification taking place and they've got a bunch of mind defrayed a little bit there. And they've got a bunch of empty buildings they intend to fill later. Yeah, that seems like a pretty good place to squat, right? It almost like forces them to do something about it. Don't just build buildings that are going to sit empty in our community because you're going to get a bunch of people squatting inside of them. However, I think the problem with squatting is that it inherently requires that you are going to be prepared to defend the squat, because people need a place where they can feel safe and they can make long-term plans. Otherwise, it doesn't really provide a very stable home to them. And so squatting is kind of an unintentionally or intentionally militant act, which sort of represents conflict with the state and private entities. And so that's not to say it's something you shouldn't do. However, you should ask yourself, what does winning look like, right? What does winning really look like? I would say it's good as direct action, and it's something that you could do as a sort of protest, and it might bring attention to what's going on. It might provide a temporary headquarters or a place for people to stay that need it, but that it is not in and of itself a revolutionary activity. It's kind of back, lots of things that one could list are things that if they are integrated with a broader revolutionary movement, which is using a lot of different tactics, they could be valuable, but by themselves, they are not sufficient to create change. They could create change together with the rest of the tactics, but by themselves they can't. So, let's see here. If you were to wear 19th century clothing, you would look right at home in the First International. Thank you. There we go. Okay. I don't know how to say that name, but they said, one of the base strategies of a serious anarchist should be to detach themselves from the contract they signed with the state by carrying their ID papers and stop using them. Yeah, no, I don't really think that has any effectiveness. It doesn't matter whether you carry an ID or not. It doesn't really change the way that the state's going to treat you, other than it might make you a little easier to prosecute or to charge, to treat like a criminal, basically. I don't really think that has any effectiveness, and that doesn't really represent detaching yourself from the state. I don't think that quote unquote detaching ourselves in that sense until we have alternative structures is really meaningful. I think that running away from the enemy, trying to quote unquote detach ourselves, confuses the process. We can't detach ourselves. We are integrated with society. Every time you buy something, every time you go somewhere, every time you use a public amenity, every time you do anything, you are involved with the total structure. The things like that, like, you know, it just amounts to a form of, I don't know, personal protest that I don't think really amounts to much at all. I kind of feel the same way about that as I feel like about a boycott, you know, it just really doesn't ever show up on the radar of the enemy. Feral Thought says, my issue is, why would a critical mass of anarchists overthrow something that the other 70% want? Wouldn't our time be better spent building a society that reflects our ideas? Well, I mean, I don't think that, I'll put it this way. I don't think that when you've got 30% of people who agree with revolutionary activity, that the other 70% just don't want it. I think that what you've got is like a mixture of people who don't want to do a revolution because they're just afraid of change. You've got people who are outright conservatives and reactionaries. You've got people who are just uncertain and might go either way. I think what you'll find is that a strong 30% of society, 20 to 30% of society, they're just like totally tuned out of political issues. If we got 30% of the populace, or that's a huge number, it should be said, on board with revolutionary activity, you'd probably only have like 30% who opposed it. And those would probably be your real enemies. You'd probably, the other 30% would be like a grab bag of all kinds of different ideas and concepts and ideologies, including like liberals and people who are just siding with the state out of safety and comfort and the fear of change and disruption. So I don't think you're never going to create 100% agreement. That's unironically what is meant by idealism in theory, or utopianism, right? You can find this in Engels' writing, and everybody knows I'm not a big fan of Engels, but that's what he's talking about. This idea that we just have to convince everybody. You never will convince everybody. You know, that's not what the capitalists did, right? The liberal revolution, yes, it spread wide and it changed the way society thought, but it's not like they got 100% of people in society to become liberals or to become capitalists. They just got enough people that once society was changed, that the foundations, the ideological foundations and the structural foundations were there to allow that change to take place. So I don't really believe in this pacifist conception that you have to convince everybody, but I do believe it is a net good to try to convince as many people as possible. But I think that's probably best done by struggle, both in creating power structures and in militant conflict with power structures, with hierarchical power structures. Me Too says, a good starting point for mass movements would be to start organizing around human needs, access to basic needs, and a job guarantee, while pushing for economic and radical democracy in that process. I agree with the first part, but I don't think that our goal should be to try to get concessions from the state. I think that what that leads to is reformism. and it leads to people thinking that the state is where improvement lies, that we are trying to get the state to improve society, when what we should really be doing is trying to figure out ways that we can create structures that will improve society, which will provide those benefits to the people directly. This is the meaning of direct action by anarchists. And in doing so, we create the alternative structures which give the lie to the need of hierarchy. So I agree with you in a sense. And it's not bad, of course, for us to try to force the state to give us those concessions, but I don't think that we should be focusing on building a movement by asking for those concessions from the state, because that will get us oriented around seeing the state as our solution rather than our problem. Thoughts on post-left philosophy? I stumbled across an audiobook of it on Desert Outpost channel, and it sounds compelling. I don't know. A lot of it just kind of seems trivially true. But a lot of it I just don't agree with. Like, I just don't agree with their conception of what the left is. You know, their arguments are about how the left is not even a coalition, and therefore, you know, we need to move past this conception of the left. You know, the people we're supposedly grouping under the left don't even agree and therefore can't even work together. But I think there's a misunderstanding. The left is not the name of a coalition. The left is the name of a cluster of ideologies. And it's not, those ideologies don't need to agree. It'd just be like, you know, it'd be like naming something a political ideology. Do political ideologies all agree? No. But they don't need to. Everything that is labeled doesn't have to be uniform. And so the word left doesn't need to refer to a single unified block of people. So I don't know. That's most of the criticism I've seen, or one of the key criticisms I've seen. So, but yeah, anyway, I mean, I'll read more myself, and then I can develop even a further understanding. Ming Savar says, the internet is a good example of a form of anarchism, especially like open source creative projects. I think there's some truth to the internet. Is weird because it like has aspects of it which are anarchistic and horizontal, and other aspects of it which are very hierarchical. So it has like mixtures of centralization and decentralization. But anyway, I think there's some truth to that. I think open source projects definitely have some anarchistic facets to them. Magnus says, do you have a source for your earlier claim about science and not capitalism being responsible for innovation? I want to be able to back it up in debates. I mean, it's hard to tell you like a single source, because what I'm essentially citing is the history of science. Like, science was going through a process of innovation before capitalism. You know, if you look, for example, at France before the Napoleonic Wars, science was booming. That's no credit to monarchy. It's just that around the world, there was beginning to be a very strong base of scientific research, which stretched all over the globe. Scientists are most benefited from creating networks of research. And that's why scientists tend to be not nationalistic, because they know that they are benefited, and their research is benefited by the conferencing of many, many minds across the world. And what we saw was during this period of time, during the transition between monarchy and republics or capitalist republics, that there was tons of scientific research being done in these monarchies, being done in these places which had not moved into the age of capitalism. And that's because the majority of research is not done by capitalistic entities. Private entities do not do almost any first-generation research. And by first-generation research, I mean research that starts from fundamentals, that tries to find first principles. Not like second-generation research, where we're looking at the results of those first principles, the results of those foundations we've already discovered. You know, that sort of research is what capitalists do. Capitalists take the research of other scientists who've already researched foundations and first principles, generally in colleges or for the government, and then they apply it in particular scenarios. So then they can take what was already found out by scientists who just had a passion for learning and for accruing knowledge, and then they take it and they apply it to particular technologies, which they can put on the market. But the thing is that in science, whether something is marketable is really not important to science. Science is just trying to find out knowledge. It's trying to proceed towards a better understanding of the truth. And so like whether it can make a cell phone or not is not relevant to what's being found out. You know, in physics, we're not trying to figure out, for example, like are the weak and the electromagnetic spectrum, joined with one another so that I can make a really cool widget, you know, so that I can make a really awesome computer. We know that might be some sort of outcome, but that's not why we're doing that first generation research. Scientists, in a general sense, are not motivated by money, by markets. They are motivated by the desire for knowledge. The desire for knowledge, the desire for discovery, a passion for the material, a passion for the field that they are part of. And that can be demonstrated by the fact that many, or rather I should say almost all of the scientists doing the most important first generation work, or I should say pretty much all of them, 99.9% of them, work for like universities. And every once in a while they work for some government bureau like DARPA or something. But even DARPA is just pulling a lot of the time from things that were already discovered by research groups at universities. So there's really just no validity to the claim that capitalism is necessary for coordinating scientific research. In fact, if anything, it almost seems like it's kind of just a parasite on scientific research. It's really good for application, turning things into widgets, but it's not really that great at finding out the first generation knowledge that leads to us being able to make better widgets. So damn, I mean, I could go on. I'm going to stop there. I hope that is kind of sufficient for you to get an understanding of what I'm saying here. Do I lift? No, I haven't lifted in a while, but I do like to lift. I think it's probably my favorite way of working out. Why, you just asking because I'm ripped? Okay, I'm not, but if I could get myself to the gym a little more often, or if I could have like, I don't know, a barbell or something here, that'd be nice. So let's see. Perhaps you could do a YouTube short with plugs. Maybe, I don't know. Oh, plugs of other channels. Yeah, that'd be cool. It's a good idea. Sam asks, what do you think is more important or urgent to build as far as horizontal power is concerned in a prefigurative way? 1, productive capacity, true worker co-ops, or 2, Intel capacity, aka the Kontrasvedka. You know, I know you, Sam, and you know me. And so, you know, my answer is that neither is more important. They are both going to be necessary, and many things are going to be necessary. You know, for example, if we were to just create Intel capacity, but we didn't have the rest of it, then it probably wouldn't be super valuable. You know, we get something like Anon or something. You know, we'd probably get like hacker agencies and stuff like WikiLeaks, but very anarchistic. And don't get me wrong, it's valuable. It would be forms of anti-fascism, probably would be one of their main thrusts. And it's absolutely needed. Once again, it's necessary, but neither is sufficient. Same thing with worker co-ops. You know, worker co-ops are also just not sufficient by themselves. They have to be intermixed with a sociological, cultural, power structural, a profusion of all of these kinds of horizontal means of managing society. Because we're not just trying to replace one capacity. We're trying to replace all of the capacities of the previous society, which requires us to have lots of people doing lots of tasks that all work together. That's how we create complementarity. So that's, I know it's kind of a cop-out, but that's what I would really say to that. I already responded about RICO indictment in Atlanta. Unpredictable axolotl. Well, if it isn't Anark, the anarchist, and his merry band of subscribers participating in a live stream, why am I not surprised? Oh no, did it? No. Okay. There we go. We went long enough. The camera went idle, but it didn't shut off. We're still here. Noam Chomsky says, anarchists literally squat buildings, fix them up, and give them to homeless people all the time. True? And then you say, it's revolutionary praxis. I am unaware where that has ever actually been a revolutionary praxis. It's involved, perhaps, like if you look at the seizures of the C&T FAI during the Spanish Civil War, but they didn't do a whole bunch of squatting beforehand. There was some, but it was not really a main part of the revolutionary process. Of course, you have to defend the squats or hold space. It's literally... Yeah. And once again, you're making the claim that it's like, it's how a revolution will happen if you believe in a revolution. There's a reason why that's never been the case. There's never been a revolution that happened by establishing a bunch of squats. And that's because a revolution is not just a militant armed action. Revolution is about building alternative structures, and just sitting in the enemy's buildings is not building an alternative structure. You're not building anything where you actually have power. All you're doing is you're just occupying space. There's nothing wrong with occupying that space. There's nothing wrong with militantly defending it, but it will never lead to a revolution. It never has led to a revolution. Stream needs more air horns and maybe some Subway Surfers in the bottom left. Totally. That probably would make it better. Yeah, not enough dopamine right now. I feel ya. I've probably got a bunch of ADHDers in my audience here, and I'm really dropping the ball on that. I'm sorry. But if you came here for dopamine, ooh, you got another thing coming. You need to only be here if this is your hyperfixation. I mean, I don't know what to tell you otherwise. What tier of your Patreon gives me access to your address? None. Sorry to tell you. Yeah, no. Nope. What classical anarchist would you get along with best or would like to have a chance to talk to? Probably Malatesta. And it's kind of just off the top of my head, but dude seemed pretty awesome. You know, Malatesta seemed like he was not only a good person, but a brilliant theorist and had a very long history of organizing and successful organizing. I think that's the answer to that question. I keep looking over at my stream and seeing I've got that glitch core thing going on quite a bit here, but I think you can all hear me and everything, so it's fine. I should also mention, this is going to be a short stream. I'm only going to go for like another 30 minutes and then I have to get out of here. So, soon I'll be jumping off of here. I just didn't want to leave y'all without Friday content. Let's see here. What even is society and why are we enforcing it? Society is the conglomeration of all of our social actions put together, of all of our actions as human beings, all our interactions, our interpersonality, the structures, both physical and ideological, that we build. It is all of the sets of expectations that we have socially about one another and about humans, both individually and as a group. And we don't need to enforce it because it can't not exist. It is inevitable. It is part of us being a social species. We are not an individualistic species. We are a social species. Therefore, we contain empathy. Therefore, we contain the ability to understand the emotions and ideas of others. Therefore, we build expectations about others, both at the individual and the social level. So yes, society is the emergent properties of that. And it is something you can't get rid of, nor should you want to get rid of. Hi, what is your point of view on feminist standpoint theory? I think that it offers some valuable ideas, which is to say, those who are affected by a particular thing will often have unique insights that those who do not stand at that position can understand. And it is usually the case that someone who is affected will therefore have more insight to offer onto a topic about structures which affect them. But I do think the problem with standpoint theory is that it often sort of fetishizes the person who is in that position as to make us think that because they are affected, that therefore they are kind of the last authority on the topic, and that we have to listen to what they are saying, and that they are the the only ones who know what's going on. So, in feminist standpoint theory, it might be women, but as we know, there's plenty of women who are beholden to the patriarchy. They're affected by the patriarchy, and yet they've bought in completely. We've got women in positions of state power who are doing just as much to enforce, imperialism and war abroad as any other woman who doesn't hold those positions. The same thing would go for marginalized people of any kind. You can't just say that because somebody stands at that position that means that they have necessarily the correct position on those things. But they're correct to say that they are likely to have very unique insights that if you don't listen to them, if you don't take those positions into account, you'll probably come to very erroneous conclusions. And furthermore, that we are never going to have a successful movement of any kind if we don't think about how people standing at those unique junctures will have those unique insights. So I guess, that's my position on that. I think it has some value, but sometimes people kind of turn it into a vulgar version of itself. They fetishize it or weaponize it even. Let's see. Me too. Yeah, I meant it in terms of forcing the state to do something in a non-reformist sense, which would help with gaining higher bargaining power to further organize. Yeah, that's a pretty classic position. Malatesta even talks about it as like claiming ground in a conflict or something. I think that, if that's what you mean, then I understand what you're saying. Connor Barber says, if you had to pick between 30% of people engaging in militant revolutionary action with little constructive action, or 30% of people engaging in prefigurative structures with no militancy, which one? I hate these either or things because there's never an answer to these because it has to be both. You have to have militant revolutionary activity along with prefigurative structures. If you create prefigurative structures that don't engage with any militancy, you're just going to find that they turn into really mundane things. They're going to turn into things which are really boring and liberal probably. They need to be something that can engage with it at the juncture of struggle. So I reject your binary, but yes, something says Albert Einstein didn't think of money when he came up with relativity. Exactly. That's the history of science. It's science. Like real foundational discoveries come from people who are just in love with knowledge, who are in love with science, who care about these. They're passionate about thinking and learning. I'm reading your message, Unpredictable Axolotl. Ford Soon says, thoughts on things someone with a really bad social anxiety can do to assist in the struggle. I feel like so much praxis is essentially social and I have limits on how much I can do that. Nothing immediately comes to mind. I mean, the answer is first, you obviously want to educate yourself. So I would say the beginning of the process is just becoming radicalized, learning more about revolutionary ideology. But the truth is that we are trying to build a society of solidarity and connection between people. Complementarity comes when you build strong bonds between all of the units. And so, I understand you have social anxiety, but what I would say is, if I had to guess, you probably don't have as much social anxiety around people who are like your people, you might say, people who you feel comfortable around. And insofar as that we create these structures, these social structures, it will help us find our people, you might say. However, it is hard for me to immediately think of anything that probably would have any transformative action or transformative potential that does not contain some social aspect to it. However, I'm not telling you that there's no answer to the question. I think that I just haven't thought about it deeply enough to have a good answer to your question. But I would invite anybody else in chat to answer that question. I think it's a perfectly rational question to ask. I just don't immediately have something off the top of my head to answer to you here. But maybe one thing is if you have any programming skills or writing skills, for example, you could program platforms that would help us communicate with one another, like the Dual Power app that Black Socialists in America was or is developing, those kinds of things, or writing theory, learning and writing theory. It's probably also something helpful. Let's Let's see here. Feral Thought says, I just don't understand the point of revolution. If the future we can have 30% of the US identify as anarchist, why not just build a model for people to see? That's exactly what I'm saying. Revolution is not just an armed coup. Revolution is a process. Often it's kind of said that there's like capital R revolution and lower R revolution. And I'm really talking about lower R revolution. I think eventually it will probably lead to something militant, like an actual coup. But I think that that's not the immediate term goal. In fact, you won't even succeed if you start that way. You have to, as you say, perform anarchy in action. So I actually don't disagree with you. I think that's exactly right. You want to create a model for people to see. It's called prefiguration. If you watch the rest of my work, you'll see that that's a topic I talk about very regularly. Yeah, Tempest Lord Ryan is kind of on the same page here. It's kind of what they're saying. Yeah, I go by the logic of revolution is already kind of happening. It's not just the big flashy civil war yet anyway, but people are building and fighting nonetheless. Revolution is a process. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I just said. Let's see here. How do you feel about antisocial individualist anarchism? I think it's ineffective. And I think that it's wrong about society. I think that, what I said a minute ago is essentially the truth, which is that you really can't not have a society. That's not real. And society is not an imposition upon the individual. Society empowers the individual. Individual without the society is someone starving alone in the wilderness. The idea that there is some transcendent individual that is not embedded in a society is imagining that we're some kind of a lone hunting animal. We're not. That's not what we are. We are a social species. There's no escaping society, and there shouldn't be. We just need to create a society that fosters solidaric behaviors, that fosters complementarity. But if you want to see kind of my views, if you want a longer form explanation of my views, you can find it both in the video Hope and in part 2 of A Modern Anarchism. So you might want to watch part 1 of A Modern Anarchism first to get a feel for what I'm saying, but you then would want to watch part 2 where I explicitly talk about the split between social and individualist anarchism. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a question, but I think I just agree with Tempest Lord. Intersectionality without class consciousness is liberalism. Class consciousness without intersectionality is class revisionism. Both without solidarity are equally worthless. I pretty much just agree with that. Yeah. Which is to say that any of those without one another isn't going to work. You need intersectionality, class consciousness, and solidarity. Wow, I'm just looking over at the stream and it just looks like I'm glitching like crazy, but I hope the sound is still working. How would I define the term the left? I generally consider the left to be the cluster of ideologies based around militant labor activity. So that is to say, you don't just believe that labor should be like represented, like you don't just believe that unions are cool. You can be a liberal and believe that. It's that you think that the working class or that the laboring class, the toilers, as they've sometimes been called, need to rise up and fight for their rights in society. They need to fight for their power. They need to create a militant constituency that fights back against capitalism. So I see leftism as being kind of inherently anti-capitalist. And then you've got clusters of all kinds of different ideologies within that. You've got anarchism, socialism, communism, mutualism, all that stuff. Oh, I froze. Oh, I went so long without a freeze. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, I'm back. I'm so good at the technologies, but that's how I think of the term the left. So In Space says, I quite really liked your 5 values at the end of episode 2 of Modern Anarchism. Can you please talk about it more detailed now or in the future? For example, how you fuse 2 values to a more specific one. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think I talked about it pretty in depth there, but yeah, no, I mean, those 5 values are my attempt to kind of recognize all of the contributions of both individualist and social anarchism. But instead of just like conceding, well, everybody's right, I kind of said, okay, we can still recognize what leads to the benefit of all of those values within this framework. And that framework doesn't just like concede to individualist anarchism. It says individualist anarchism, you've got some things right, but here's what you're missing. And it says social anarchism, sometimes you kind of overlook the individual, and here's how you can, these are the things you need to remember about the importance of the individual. And so that was my attempt there. And it wasn't exactly synthesis anarchism, because I'm not just being like, well, everybody get along, we're all right here. Like, I take a position, right? But I'm not trying to like exclude individualist anarchists. It's an attempt to be like, individualist anarchists, social anarchists, how can we work together? How can we act together? And so that was what was really going on there. But I don't want to lay out all the values again here. I don't want to lay out in detail what all of them are, because it'd be kind of time consuming. Let's see. I wear a shirt says, hi, Anark. When are you continuing the Anark Responds videos? I learn a lot from them and find them very entertaining. Well, that's cool. I like that kind of feedback, by the way. You know, if anybody thinks that, you know, I find that presumptuous or forceful, I don't. I need that kind of feedback from my audience to know what kind of material you all want me to do. No matter what, I'm going to keep doing these massive video essays, which are always being worked on behind the scenes. But when you give me feedback about like, I want Anark Abridged videos, I want Anark Responds videos, I want live streams, that gives me something to go on. Then I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll prioritize that. Maybe I'll be thinking about more ideas for that. So like, what's the answer right now? I'm kind of just doing these as the fancy strikes me, right? So like, I'll do more Anark Responds videos, probably because you mentioned that, and I'll figure out what the next one's going to be. Might be Constructing the Revolution, might be something else. But soon, I would say, given what you just told me. Scientific Class Guy says, how does that definition source differ from what modern American media calls the left? I mean, a lot of people just call the left like anything that's not the right. So it's like, for them, it's like liberals, socialists, communists, like all mixed up together. And I think that is just like incoherent. At that point, I just really don't think you've got anything that can even be called like a commonality. You know, there's no commonality in there anymore. I think that, you know, it doesn't really make sense to call that the left. So yeah. Daniel, Palamarchuk, I massacred that, didn't I? Says, hey, Anark, nice bike. Thank you. I haven't rode it in a while. I used to ride it a lot more when I was at college, but... Rory Bam Bam says, I'm finding it difficult to keep my mutual aid project going, getting burnt out, and finding others are relying on a few people to keep a project going consistently. Yep. Yes. That is incredibly common. This is something I've been hearing about a lot of people carrying out mutual aid. It's not just you. It is a lot of people. One of the groups I was with, Scissortail Anarchist Organization, it was like 2 people that were consistently doing the work, getting this all working and getting getting us the shares together and everything. And I'll just say straight up, I was not one of those people. I was just helping whenever I could lend a hand, but I was not one of those main people. And the people who were doing it totally got burnt out. And, you know, I put a little bit of the work on my shoulders and they're starting to get burnt out, but you know, that's sort of one of the problems. One of the problems is you have to find a way to coordinate everybody. You have to try to rotate before everybody gets burnt out. And I talked a little bit about that in that sort of like rambling Anark Abridged or Anark Responds that I did. This called like Revolution is Hard, Be Nice to Yourself, is basically like you need to you need to be able to rotate people out before they get burnt out. But that also requires that the group is paying attention to your capacity. Okay, you need to pay attention to your capacity. You need to be vocal about your capacity. Okay, we have this thing in our groups where we're like ashamed to ask for rest, but you need to tell people if you need rest. And before you dip out and rest, you need to make sure that they know how to do everything that you were doing. And this can act as a great way to educate people. So don't just see it as a downside. It's also an opportunity to teach other people how to do the tasks, and therefore it helps everybody become a better organizer. So I guess the answer to the question is kind of rotation. You know, you need to consciously set up a system where you rotate every few months or whatever, every 3 months or every 4 months. One thing Scissortail tried to do is they basically said at the end of every share, we would say, who's going to be the person that's going to be front man next time or front woman or whatever, right? And that worked pretty well, but you're going to have to find a system. It's not going to fix itself. In the absence of some formal structure and some agreement among the participants, I'm sorry to say, you're probably going to all burn out and the project might fall apart because of it. So you need to find some way to share the load, and do not rotate out once you're burnt out. You will be absent way longer than if you just tell people before you're burnt out that you need to rest. I found that if I tell people before I'm burnt out that I need to rest, I only need to rest for maybe a few weeks. But if I wait to burn out, it's months. And that's destructive. That makes things really, really hard. And it's hard on everybody. It's hard on you because you have to rest for so long. And it's hard on everybody that has to take up the slack afterwards. So, yeah, anyway. Panos Roussis says, hi there from Greece. We recently had an election in my country where the abstention was 46%. Not to say that elections are good, but many anarcho-aligned people came to see it as good. Yet I feel it leads to apolitical apathy rather than support for anarchy. What's your view? I think the historic anarchist position that political abstentionism or voting abstentionism is some like demonstration of everybody like, saying the state is illegitimate. I think that's fundamentally wrong. I think it has nothing to do. I don't think that people don't vote because they're like, oh, the state is illegitimate. They don't vote most of the time because they don't think it's going to make a difference. And a lot of the time as well, they just aren't engaged enough. They just aren't, they don't have the energy, or they're just exhausted because of their working life. It isn't in any way a demonstration of people's, rejecting the state. It's a bunch of other stuff. It also just doesn't matter if people go to vote, in the same sense that I'm not trying to be like either way. I just personally don't care if people vote. I think that the key is that we should be making sure that they are politically engaged, and there's nothing inherently good. There's no demonstration that they are politically engaged because they didn't vote. So I think I just agree with you. My new weed dealer is a tanky. What are the odds of that? Yeah, that's weird. It's kind of weird, but interesting. Tempest Lord says, you need a healthy individualism and a healthy collectivism to make a healthy movement. Couldn't agree more, Tempest Lord. Or sorry, should I say Raihan? Or do you want your full title every time? Tempest Lord Raihan. Panos says, I don't know if you answer so specific answers. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Steve McNally, they're great vids, Dan. Thank you very much. Pin archives, stream moment. Oh, no, did something happen? No, nothing happened. Everything's fine. Okay, don't scare me like that. Lily says, have you considered joining Nebula? I think your long form videos would do well there. I kind of looked at the website, and I think they invite you. I don't think you go to them, but I don't know if anybody has more details. Feel free to tell me. I'd be willing to upload my videos in a bunch of different places. Let's see here. Me Too says, yep, we got an individualist anarchist thrown in jail a few months ago. The harshest sentence. Looked his federation up, explicitly antisocial and anti-Marxist. And I don't really know what to make of that. He was the face of anarchism in Italy for a while. Nice way to delegitimize the movement as a whole. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to know more specifics to weigh in on it. I don't support, obviously don't support the imprisonment of any anarchist. I'd be interested to know what's going on with that, or like, you know, what that image is and everything. I'm not educated enough to have an opinion on that kind of thing. It's how non-Slavic Americans in general pronounce my last name, so you're good. There we go. I can be grouped in with the ignorant ones. I'm just as good as the rest of the ignorant people. I wouldn't call class struggle a revolution by itself, but rather evolution. If we're good, class consciousness rise, and the phase of evolution leads to a proletarian revolution to overcome current hierarchical power structures. I think that's pretty close to accurate. And I think that matches the way most anarchists have seen it throughout history. Tempest Lord Raihan says, also, did you hear about the Barcelona C&T platforming TERFs who also gave a backlist of 15 student organizers to the police? I feel like it needs to be known what happened. No, I did not know about that. That is egregious. I'd like to know more details just to kind of know what the substance of that is, but that is very troubling. Very troubling. Not good. Not good. I would hope that there would be people reaching out to them, telling them why they shouldn't be doing that. But part of me thinks there probably are not. But anyway, owner Hep Guler says, Clarence Leash Swartz and Benjamin Tucker had no problem with wage labor and private property. Would they be considered ANCAPs if they lived today with the same ideas that they had? No, they'd just be considered mutualists probably. But private property, no, they didn't support private property, which is to say they didn't support the capitalistic relation. They were okay with wage labor in a more general sense, but pretty much every anarchist has always supported cooperatives. If capitalist enterprises exist, they're based in domination. I think there's been a lot of misinterpretation of Tucker, but that goes both ways. So what do you think of central bank digital currency means to the growth of the anarchist community? The possibility of UBI as well as the elimination of cash is part of the rollout. It's something that may happen, but it will have no contributing factor to anarchism, I would say. It has nothing to do with the development of anarchism. At most, it might help people create enough of a cushion, a social cushion, that people can become anarchists, but it could also create a system where people are afraid of losing their stipend and therefore less likely to do radical activity. Let's see here. Connor Barber says, do you think there's value for anarchists in civil disobedience? Yeah, I think a lot of anarchists get their start in civil disobedience, to be honest. Like, that's pretty common. I have to make these answers shorter because I'm only going to be here for about 5 more minutes. But yeah, I think, I don't think that it's like should be our primary method, but I think a lot of anarchists learn to organize by doing civil disobedience, myself included. I got my start in Occupy. Lily says Nebula is creator owned. So yes, it isn't like YouTube where you just sign up and upload. I'm not sure how the process works, but I'm guessing they would love to have you. Maybe, maybe not. I know there's a lot of people over there with very different political views from me, so I don't really know what that would entail for me to join. And appropriately, Execute says, watching the state as counter-revolutionary turned me into an anarchist, lol. Thank you, Anark. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I'm not sure. I know they have some authoritarian leftists over there. I don't know if they would want me to join, given the kind of material I make. Moving on. Basically, the Barcelona C&T platformed a TERF professor and other TERFs who advocated against trans healthcare and called trans people mentally ill. Wow. That's really bad. And when students were organizing at the same school the professor works at, she gave the cops a blacklist of names. Oh, wow. That's really, really bad. Yeah, there has to be some kind of recourse for that sort of thing. Obviously, I don't know if that has to do with the sort of people who are in leadership positions in the C&T, if the C&T has a very TERF constituency. I don't know. because I don't have any particular knowledge, but I would say that there definitely needs to be some work to get the CNT to stop that behavior. That is extremely harmful behavior. Sam asks, as the burnout conversation is concerned, do you see a connection between the organizing most of activists are focusing on and burnout as related to those that aren't materially benefited from participating? I'm not entirely sure I understand, are focused on as related to those that aren't materially benefited from participating. Oh, I see. They're getting burned out because they're not materially benefited from participating. Yeah. Yes. In fact, I got to say, historically, the reason I think that the union was so effective is because when you organized a union, it led to material gains for you, right? Like, you're going to commit hard when the union is raising your wages and getting you health care and getting you sick days and so on. So like that makes sense as to why unions were so motivating. And we need to be doing the same thing. We need to be trying to ask ourselves, how is what we're doing, how does it actually benefit the people who are involved in these militant actions? Why are people going to sacrifice their lives and their safety to do these radical actions that we're suggesting? And I think we need to be thinking more realistically about how we're going to provide benefit to these people. It's not bad to provide benefit to people. People don't need to do this completely out of the kindness of their heart. We're trying to create counter structures. So yeah, no, there needs to be serious thought put into answering that question. We need to stop thinking ourselves as just being charities that are just doing handouts, and instead think of how we can all, including the people that we're trying to help in that charity sense, can all be benefited from the actions we're doing. Let's see here. Panos says, thanks for the answer. Yeah, I feel that the Greek anarchist movement is still largely dominated by the individualist anarchism of the 2000s. Yep, that's my impression. I hope that changes. InSpace says, we heard of it in Germany. Very sad to have heard. Fortunately, there were calls of unitary action between the three syndicalist unions lately. Masuda asks, are you a GDF fan? I do not know what that is. Sorry, I don't know what GDF is. Let's see here. Yeah, you say your IWW branch in Houston made a statement calling for the Barcelona's CNT branch to be unconfederated. I mean, if it's not that, there needs to be some serious process, some serious grievance process with the, where there's like outreach into the organization and communication with the membership. That's treacherous as far as I'm concerned. That's a demonstration of hierarchical behavior. TERFs are proponents of a hierarchical ideology. Let's see here. So I pretty much need to leave, but I'm going to look at these last ones, see if anything catches my eye. What do I think about a resource-based economy? It supports the abolition of currency. Yeah, that's good. If it can be done, it's good. What do I think about the economic calculation problem? A little bit overhyped. You could definitely do forms of distribution. I think the economic calculation problem just sort of like presumes that money is the best way to distribute things. But I think there are many ways that could be done. We have very, very powerful computers. Pen Archives, why so much Magic the Gathering? Because I like Magic the Gathering, okay? Maybe I'll play Magic on stream sometime. Y'all can see how bad I am, but how many decks I have. Subscribe to the channel if you like Magic the Gathering. That's what it is. This is a gaming channel now. I've just given up on anarchist theory and writing all that. We're just going to do Magic the Gathering live streams, okay? Can we play EDH on stream? I am no good. I don't know enough about Commander to do that. I'm a basic bitch. I just play standard, okay? But I tried to build a Kenrith Commander deck. It's not good. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea. Okay, everybody. We're going to probably have to end it here. Yep. that's about that. I do need to go to an appointment, so I will have to be leaving so I can start getting ready. But it was good talking with y'all. I hope that was the Friday content that you needed, because, you know, I didn't release another kind of video. There's this. Kinrification is inevitable. Yeah. I mean, he seems like he's a good commander. But anyway, y'all, I think that's where we're going to end it. It was good having y'all. I'm super grateful that 50 people showed up. You know, for me, that's a lot of people. And solidarity, everyone. Keep struggling. And if you're about to get burned out, pass the baton before you get burned out, my friends. I'll talk to y'all soon.